This topic is hot right now, and I'm excited to share it with you. Who gets to have an opinion? I'm excited to share the fallout from the Joe Rogan experience that featured Douglas Murray and Dave Smith, and oh my gosh, so people were so excited about this. And I wanted to share what this means for you as a leader, author, entrepreneur, etc. This is Strategic Basics, and I'm Aurora Winter, the founder of Same Page Publishing and the author of Turn Words into Wealth. Let's break it down. Here's what happened. On April 16th, 2025, Joe Rogan released an episode featuring Douglas Murray and Dave Smith. The conversation started as a discussion about Israel and Gaza and quickly became a heated debate about who deserves a platform to speak on serious issues. Douglas Murray criticized Rogan for allowing non-experts to weigh in on complex global conflicts. Dave Smith pushed back, defending the right of everyday people to question narratives and offer their personal perspective. As Douglas Murray put it during the very heated exchange on the Joe Rogan Experience, quote, "It doesn't mean that a comedian can simply hold himself out as a Middle East expert and should be listened to as if he had a body of work." Dave Smith countered powerfully. The people with real power should do a better job of not lying through their teeth about everything. Okay, so these two people had a completely different point of view. And the debate continued off air. Murray published a critical piece in the New York Post, emphasizing the need for a standard on who speaks authoritatively about serious matters. Here's a quote from his New York Post article. "There's a difference between having an opinion and being qualified to shape public understanding on matters of war and peace." Dave Smith didn't let it drop. In his own podcast, Part of the Problem, he devoted a full hour to exploring who gets to be considered an expert and why lived experience and open dialogue is so essential. Look, now I'm not political and I'm certainly not an expert on war, but I am an expert on communication, and I do have something to share about this that I think is very important for all of us, especially those of you who are considering writing a book. Everyone has the right to be heard. Everyone has the right to an opinion. You can show up as an expert or you can show up as a witness. For example, Carrie Mancarini, one of my clients, she's not a doctor, but her own personal experience reclaiming her health when Western medicine, the experts, said that she had only 6 months to live and there was nothing they could do. That's what the experts said. And if she had listened to them, she'd be dead now. But a dozen years later, and after a big struggle, she discovered how to reclaim her own health and vitality, and she calls it the Vitality Solution. It's about IV vitamin therapy, fasting, mindfulness, eating right, having a meaningful life, so many valuable things. It saved her life. It was her personal journey, and now she's put it in her book, The Vitality Solution, and it will help others. And she struggled. I was helping her put this book together, and she struggled at the beginning, dismissing the value of her experience because she's like, well, I'm not a doctor. Do I have a right to speak out about this? Yes, you have a personal experience. The expert told you you were going to die in 6 months and there was nothing they could do. If you'd listened to the experts, you'd be dead. So yes, you have the right to a personal opinion. And in her book, The Vitality Solution, which is coming out next month, she is clear. She's like, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. This is just what happened for me. This is what helped me. Perhaps it will be helpful for you. Give it a try, but also check with your doctor. So many people come to me at Same Page Publishing they have great ideas for books. They're excited to make a difference in the lives of others. They want to leave a legacy, but they hesitate. They discount the value of their personal experience because they think, who am I? I'm not an expert. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a scientist. I don't have a PhD. But look, I am passionate that your story matters. Your story is valuable. In fact, your story is really the only thing you have to give others, and it's part of your legacy. You don't have to be a scientist or a doctor or a lawyer or have a PhD to contribute your life experience, your learned wisdom, and the takeaways that happen, your struggle, the things to avoid, your struggle, the breakthroughs, the thing that helped you. Just be honest about your role. Don't say that you're a scientist if you're not. Don't say you're a lawyer if you're not. Honestly, be a witness. And I certainly struggled this with my first book. I'm like, well, who am I? Well, we are all individual people. And remember, experts don't always agree. Experts are different people with different experiences. And if COVID-19 taught us nothing, one of the things it seemed to taught us was that science can change. Experts can be wrong, and experts can also be biased, especially depending on who signs their paycheck. Just look at any legal case where both sides trot out their expert witness and they say completely the opposite things. And plus, let's think about history. Experts knew that the Earth was the center of the planet. Wrong. Experts knew that women were not smart enough to vote or own property. Wrong. Experts thought it was okay to enslave other people. Wrong. So you don't have to look very far in history to see examples of experts having opinions that were totally wrong. Anyway, an expert simply has more data points than one unique person. But one person still has a data point. It might be typical, it might be an outlier. Either way, it matters. And I think no one would dispute that Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, is a very valuable book. It comments on his unique personal experience in Auschwitz, and I learned so much reading that book, including the fact that if you have a big enough why, you can handle almost any how. That was his unique experience. There's another great book, and that is Think and Grow Rich. And it shares a bunch of different stories from a bunch of different people who apparently thought and grow rich. And that book by Napoleon Hill is also wonderful. One of them is one person's individual experience, and the other is a cumulative gathering of multiple people's experiences. And both books, both points of view are valuable. Look, my background is in film and television. I'm an award-winning screenwriter. I've written 10 books. I love communication, and one of the things you learn as a writer is that in the specific, in the individual, becomes the universal. And if you talk in broad generalities, nobody understands you, but if you bring out a specific point, a specific one person's experience, that can resonate, as it certainly did in the amazing, profound book, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Anyway, bottom line, I am not here to comment on the war. Strategic Basics is here to serve you as an author or potential author, thought leader, expert, entrepreneur. We're not here as a political channel, and I'm going to comment on both sides of the story if there's something useful to take away for you. So I believe, personally, Aurora Winter believes in listening to everyone as if they have a message that might be important and valuable for me, that I need to hear. I believe in listening with open mind and with curiosity rather than with a closed mind. And so often people do have something very valuable, and the more you listen with that open curiosity, the more interesting people become. You know, as Jesus said, be ye as little children. And what does he mean by that? I believe that message means for us to be open, curious, and non-judgmental. And that's the path to life-changing success. Anyway, messages move markets. Make yours matter. This is Strategic Basics, where we look at breaking news stories. We look at what's happening right here, right now, and then we break apart how this could be valuable and turn it into actionable things you can do as an author, thought leader, or experts. And if you would like some help with the blueprint for your book, your brand, your business, you can get my book, Turn Words into Wealth, absolutely for free as my gift to you at turnwordsintowealth.com. I'm Aurora Winter, and this is Strategic Basics. Boy, have I got a great episode for you today. I just finished watching the 3-hour episode where Jordan Peterson is interviewed by the amazing Joe Rogan. There were so many things about that podcast I absolutely love. It's a fantastic podcast. Please go ahead and listen to it. But first, finish listening to this. I'm going to break out a couple of the most key things that really stood out to me, that I loved, that I thought were worth yellow highlighting. And this is Strategic Basics, where we look at the actionable strategies behind breaking news. Joe Rogan's podcast is a phenomenon. But why? Sure, he's curious, funny, and has a ridiculously great guest list. But in JRE episode number 2308 with Jordan Peterson, something deeper emerged, and I paid attention and wanted to share it with you. Around the half-hour mark, Jordan Peterson observed, "You're on a quest. That's what makes your podcast magnetic." Wow. Rogan's quest is to understand, and that makes his curiosity contagious. Peterson mirrors this too. Every time he speaks, you can feel it. He's searching. He's wrestling with the truth in real time. Here's the takeaway for us. When we are curious and interested, people feel it. They become curious and interested too. They talk about you more. They're drawn to the energy of your mission. And this matters more than ever. In a world swirling with manipulation, censorship, performance, and scripts, authenticity cuts through the noise. Around the 55-minute mark, Joe Rogan reflects on how he survived one of the most intense waves of cancel culture and didn't get canceled. In fact, he faced the fire and built trust. Thankfully, at that time, he was hosted on Spotify. Joe Rogan said, "Spotify is a Swedish company. They promote art. They didn't censor me. They don't censor rappers, and they didn't censor me." Here's what's behind that comment. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Rogan was heavily criticized for hosting voices with unpopular views on public health. Some of those guests were labeled as dangerous and irresponsible. Others were banned from social media, even canceled. Why wasn't Rogan taken down? Here's what Spotify CEO Daniel Ek gave as his response at the height of the controversy. Quote, "I want to make one point very clear. I do not believe that silencing Joe is the answer. We should have clear lines around content and take action when they're crossed, but canceling voices is slippery slope. Looking at the issues more broadly, it's critical thinking and open debate that powers real and necessary progress." I certainly agree with that. Rogan posted during that controversial time, quote, "My pledge to you, us, his listeners, is that I will do my best to try and balance out these more controversial viewpoints with other people's perspectives so we may find a better point of view." And that's what builds trust. Not perfection, but pursuit. Not allegiance, but inquiry. As Jordan Peterson once said, quote, "In order to be able to think, you have to risk being offensive," end quote. And that's what we saw in this Joe Rogan episode. Two men thinking out loud, risking offense, and engaging what could only be described as intellectual martial arts. It's compelling, but we may or may not agree with them. And the space creates the opportunity for the audience to wrestle with these big questions themselves and decide what they think. But that's just what I think. What about you? What do you think? Are you a fan of Joe Rogan? Are you a fan of Jordan Peterson? What stands out to you? Did you watch this 3-hour episode? I highly recommend it. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Another thing that stood out to me was at about just after an hour when Jordan Peterson talked about two kinds of leaders. He drew a bold line between the two kinds of leadership. He said, quote, "Tyrants use fear and force. True leaders lead through invitation." That really struck me. Peterson warns that tyrants deliberately trigger fear and use it as a tool for control. He emphasized the importance of recognizing when fear or force is being used to manipulate us, something we could definitely pay attention to and notice. Towards the end of the episode, just for the hour-and-a-half mark, I guess that's halfway through because it was a 3-hour episode, Peterson talks about leaving your comfort zone and stepping into the unknown. He talks about a quest being magnetic. When you lean into the quest for adventure, Peterson says, you become a blessing to yourself, to your community, and even potentially to future generations. As my mother always used to say, there's no growth in the comfort zone. So how can we all shift from comfort to consequence? I think it's about living your calling and letting that calling drive you to what you say, what you write, what you share, what you do. And in fact, that's what I am doing. I personally am on a quest to help purpose-driven leaders who are already making a difference refine their message, rise to the next level, and publish best-selling books that make a difference and launch movements. Take, for example, my client, Carrie Mancarini. What a story. Doctors gave her 6 months to live, but she had 2 young sons and too much to live for. Carrie refused to accept the wisdom of Western medicine. She didn't give up, even though she was severely ill and at that time confined to a wheelchair. She could barely think or speak, and she felt like she was in her 90s, even though she was in her early 40s. She went on a quest, searching for health, for healing, and for answers. When she finally discovered the Vitality solution, she was able to reclaim her health. Now, 12 years later, she's healthier than ever. Thank goodness the doctors were wrong when they said she had 6 months to live. And now, her message is changing lives. Her new book, The Vitality Solution, helps others regain hope and health through IV vitamin therapy, fasting, mindset, and much more. But what about you? What are you curious about? What quest are you on? How could your quest help others? Please drop a comment and let me know. Here are 3 strategic takeaways from today. Number 1, share your questions. Let people see your process and share your curiosity. Number 2, lead with invitation. Don't use fear. Invite others to join with you. And number 3, share your quest. Root your message in something timeless, your mission to make a difference. I know we may not all be at the height of Joe Rogan or Jordan Peterson. However, we can all be on a never-ending quest to improve. I think Peterson said it best, quote, "Don't compare yourself with other people, compare yourself with who you were yesterday," end quote. Please like and subscribe for more strategic basics where we explore how to turn ideas into income and influence in a very distracted world.